Hey guys, today we step into the mist-shrouded peaks of the Andes, where the air is thin, the stakes are life and death, and the Inca Empire teeters on the edge of a knife. You're standing in the golden halls of Cusco, 1527, as the great Huayna Capac, ruler of the largest empire in the Americas, takes his last, shuddering breath. Around him, his sons Atahualpa and Huáscar lock eyes, and in that moment, you already know, this won't end with whispered condolences. This ends in blood. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're watching from and your local time. Nothing like a global audience for a tale of brotherly love gone horribly wrong. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The death of an emperor is never quiet, but this one's a gut punch. Huayna Capac's body isn't even cold before the vultures, sorry nobles, start circling. And you, my friend, are right in the thick of it. The air smells of burnt herbs and sweat, the kind that clings when fear takes root. On one side of the chamber, Atahualpa, the favorite, hardened by years governing the northern territories. On the other, Huáscar, the heir apparent, raised in Cusco's gilded temples. Their father's last words? Lost to history. Probably something like, "Don't kill each other." Too bad. You watch as Huáscar claims the Mascapeca, the royal fringe of kingship, and oh, the way Atahualpa's jaw tightens? That's your first clue this empire won't stay whole. Because here's the thing about divine rulers, they're still human. And humans, we really suck at sharing. By nightfall, the capital's buzzing like a kicked beehive. Priests scan the stars for omens. Generals mutter over chicha beer. And you're realizing this isn't just a succession crisis. It's a time bomb. Tick, tock. The empire splits like overripe fruit under a dull blade. No clean cuts here. By 1528, the Inca world fractures into two jagged halves. Huáscar in Cusco, draped in sacred crimson, and Atahualpa in Quito, building an army with the quiet intensity of a storm gathering over the Andes. You walk the streets of both cities, feeling the tension thick as high-altitude fog. In Cusco, priests anoint Huáscar as Sapa Inca, but the coronation feast tastes like ashes. His first decree? A request for Atahualpa to kneel. The messenger who delivers it sweats through his tunic. Smart man. Meanwhile, in Quito, Atahualpa doesn't even break stride when he hears the news. Just keeps inspecting troops, that half-smile playing on his lips. You recognize that look. It's the same one a jaguar gets before it pounces. The Cold War begins with gifts. Oh yes, nothing says, "I totally don't want to murder you," like lavish presents. Huáscar sends golden statues, packed with spies. Atahualpa reciprocates with textiles, woven by his most persuasive generals. You watch as noble families are forced to pick sides, splitting households down the middle. A father swears loyalty to Cusco. His son slips away to Quito under cover of darkness. The roads between the cities crawl with informants, their whispers deadlier than any poison. And then the first move. Huáscar invites Atahualpa's favorite general to a religious festival. The man vanishes en route. No body, no denials, just a pair of bloodstained sandals left on the steps of a Quito temple. Atahualpa's response? He stops smiling. That's when you know. The next gift delivered won't be gold. It'll be steel. The whispers slither through the empire like serpents in the grass. Every market stall, every mountain pass carries coded messages between the brothers' camps. You find yourself in a Quito tavern, pressed against damp stone walls, as a spice merchant peels back layers of ají peppers to reveal a knotted quipu hidden beneath. The bartender's eyes flick to the door. Someone's always watching. Atahualpa's network is terrifyingly efficient. His agents pose as llama herders, their flocks moving between cities, with hollowed-out totoros stuffed with battle plans. Meanwhile in Cusco, Huáscar's priests turned temple confessionals into intelligence hubs, extracting secrets under the guise of divine absolution. A young Cieza runner collapses at your feet, his lungs shredded from sprinting 200 kilometers with a message carved into his own arm. The Inca version of encrypted email. The psychological warfare escalates. At dawn, Huáscar's loyalists wait to find their sacred Huacas defaced with Quito symbols. Atahualpa's commanders receive parcels containing their children's toys, smeared with blood that turns out to be Aikio dye this time. You witness a general's wife slowly poison her own husband's wine after being convinced he's a traitor. The empire is eating itself alive from within. Then comes the masterstroke. Huáscar spies intercept what appears to be Atahualpa's battle strategy, a full assault on the sacred valley of Georgia. The imperial army mobilizes, only to discover the documents were planned. While Cusco's forces are bogged down defending empty fields, Atahualpa's real strike force seizes 3 key fortresses. The war hasn't officially begun, but the first checkmate already belongs to the brother from Quito. The first arrow whistles past your ear before you even hear the war cries. Huáscar's ambush at the Bombin River turns the Cold War scalding hot. You're knee-deep in icy water when the attack comes, watching as Atahualpa's peace envoys are cut down midstream, their ceremonial uncool robes blooming crimson in the current. This isn't battle. This is butchery. Huáscar's hidden archers rise from the reeds like vengeful spirits, their obsidian-tipped projectiles finding throats with terrifying precision. The Quito delegation's bodyguards, veterans of northern campaigns, form a shield wall, but the riverbed's slippery stones betray them. You see one warrior slip, his golden chest plate flashing in the sunlight, for just a second before 3 arrows punch through it. The water drinks his blood greedily. Then comes the true horror. The ambush was never about killing soldiers. As the last Quito man falls, Huáscar's generals wade into the shallows with maces raised, not to deliver mercy blows, but to methodically smash every skull beyond recognition. A message in shattered bone, no witnesses, no deniable corpses, just undeniable war. By nightfall, the river runs black with carrion birds. Atahualpa receives the news while inspecting troops near Cajamarca. The messenger trembles so violently his feather headdress sheds plumage like a molting bird. But the northern king just nods, orders more wine, smiles the jaguar smile again. You realize with creeping dread, he wanted this, needed Huáscar to strike first. Now the gods themselves couldn't stop what comes next. The mountains themselves seem to recoil as Atahualpa's vengeance scorches the empire. You stand with the villagers of Tombamba when the smoke first appears on the horizon. Not the gentle wisps of hearth fires, but the thick, choking columns of a punitive expedition. The children are still laughing when the first arrows arc into the square. Chimu generals, battle-hardened from crushing northern rebellions, lead the assault with chilling efficiency. They don't just burn homes, they salt the fields, poison the wells, leave the granaries open for rats. A grandmother spits at the conquerors in Quechua, and you watch in horror as a captain calmly orders her tied between 2 bent saplings. The trees twang back upright. The empire has always excelled at engineering, but the true masterpiece of cruelty comes at dusk. The occupying force gathers survivors in the plaza, not for slaughter, but for a demonstration. They force fathers to light the pyres consuming their own homes, make mothers choose which child gets to keep a single wool cloak for the coming winter. The message is clear. Huáscar's rashness doomed you all. Meanwhile, Atahualpa's main army moves like mercury through mountain passes, avoiding every stronghold to strike soft targets. They leave survivors on purpose, broken people who will stagger to Cusco with stories that turn allies into doubters. You notice the Quito troops carry strange new weapons, bronze-tipped spears designed not to kill quickly, but to leave wounds that fester for weeks. Psychological warfare meets biological warfare. As you flee south with refugees, you hear the whispers. Atahualpa doesn't want subjects. He wants ghosts. The road to Cusco is becoming a river of the displaced, and Huáscar's grip on the throne weakens, with every sob echoing through the Andes. The drums of war still echo through the valleys when both sides suddenly call for peace. You know better than to trust it. Huáscar's invitation arrives on a golden Caro cup, delivered by a blind messenger who smells of rosewater and fear. The proposed meeting place? The sacred baths of Cuchapucu, neutral ground where weapons are forbidden by ancient law. Atahualpa's lips curl as he reads the message. My brother forgets, he murmurs. We made those laws. You travel with the Quito delegation, watching as generals conceal obsidian blades in their hair wraps and poison in their fingernails. The baths steam in the morning light, their milky waters hiding whatever lurks beneath. Huáscar arrives first, seated on a litter carried by chained war captives, a not-so-subtle power play. The brothers embrace like two jaguars, sizing each other's throats. Then comes the feast. Platters of roast cuy and fermented maize circulate as dancers perform the huarachiqui, a mock battle that suddenly feels too real. You notice serving girls lingering near Atahualpa's cup, Huáscar's generals standing just a shade too close to doorways. When a dropped platter sends everyone reaching for hidden weapons, you realize this entire summit was designed to fail. The breaking point comes at dusk. A shout rings out. Someone spotted steel glinting in the reeds. Whether it was planted evidence or genuine treachery hardly matters now. Nobles scramble for cover as both sides claim betrayal. The sacred baths run red that night, their healing waters poisoned with blood. The war isn't just reignited, it's been given holy justification. And as you flee through the chaos, one truth becomes clear. Peace was never an option, only vengeance. The Andes become a slaughterhouse as brother turns against brother in the most literal sense. You watch from a crumbling ridge as Huáscar's forces hurl themselves at Atahualpa's battle lines near Mount Chimborazo. The altitude makes every breath feel like inhaling knives, but the real horror unfolds below. Atahualpa's generals have turned the mountain itself into a weapon. You see it happen in slow motion. Quito's elite Capac Remy troops feign retreat up a narrow pass, luring Cusco's overconfident vanguard onto a carefully prepared slope. Then, with the precision of men who've rehearsed this massacre 100 times, they trigger an avalanche. The sound is like the earth itself screaming. Boulders the size of temples crush entire platoons instantly, while the lucky ones merely tumble 1,000 feet onto waiting spears. Huáscar's remaining forces rally around a sacred Ushna platform, their priests desperately sacrificing llamas to stem the tide. It works for about 3 minutes. Then Atahualpa's secret weapon emerges. Northern tribesmen smeared in black pitch who set their own arrows aflame and rain fire down on the survivors. The stench of burning wool and flesh clings to your clothes for weeks. By dusk, the pass is silent except for the moans of the dying and the occasional crunch as Quito's medics tend to wounded enemies. You notice they're not using medicine bags, just heavy rocks. A young Cusco standard bearer, maybe 14 years old, begs for water in a voice cracked with smoke. An Atahualpa captain kneels beside him and uses the boy's own golden mascapeca to strangle him. The symbolism isn't subtle. As you pick your way through the carnage, one truth becomes undeniable. This isn't just a battle. It's the methodical dismantling of Huáscar's claim to divinity, one broken body at a time. The siege of Cusco begins not with war horns, but with silence, an unnatural hush that slithers through the sacred city's cobbled streets. You wait to find the mountain springs diverted, the llama caravans vanished, the outlying storehouses reduced to smoldering ruins. Atahualpa's noose tightens with terrifying patience. Inside the starving capital, Huáscar's priests perform increasingly desperate rituals. The Temple of the Sun's golden walls are stripped bare to by mercenaries who never arrive. Children smear their faces with ash to beg the gods for rain, but the skies stay cruelly clear. You witness a noblewoman trade her last emerald for a single sack of chino, only to have it ripped from her hands by imperial guards for the war effort. Then comes the night of the burning mirrors. From the hills surrounding Cusco, Atahualpa's engineers focus polished sheets of bronze onto thatched roofs across the city. By midnight, half the districts are ablaze. The fire reflects in Huáscar's wide eyes as he stands atop Sacsayhuaman's walls, watching his birthright burn. His generals whisper of betrayal. Someone must have revealed the aqueduct's weak points. The paranoia turns lethal. By dawn, 3 of his closest advisors swing from the gates, their tongues cut out for treason. The worst comes when the Quito forces start catapulting gifts over the walls. Not stones or fire, but fattened guinea pigs and baskets of fruit, all poisoned. A starving old man devours 3 before collapsing. His grandson eats 1 anyway. You realize with dawning horror, Atahualpa isn't just conquering Cusco. He's turning it against itself. As the siege drags into its 3rd month, the once glorious streets echo with a sound no empire should ever hear. It's people chewing on leather belts while their would-be God King hides in his palace, waiting for a miracle that won't come. The fall of Cusco doesn't come with a dramatic last stand. It ends with a whimper, in the back room of the Coricancha, where Huáscar sits slumped on a stolen Quito shield, his golden sandals swapped for common woolen Yasuda sandals. You smell the surrender before you hear it. The reek of unwashed fear and emptied bowels. Atahualpa's generals enter not as conquerors, but as auditors. They inventory the temple's stripped walls with the cold efficiency of tax collectors, pausing only to kick aside the skeletal remains of Huáscar's last loyal priests. The deposed Sapa Inca is dragged out not in chains, but in a clever humiliation, bound with ropes of come-by wool, the finest in the empire, as if to say even your luxury strangles you now. The procession to captivity becomes a theater of cruelty. Atahualpa's troops force Huáscar to walk the entire length of the Capac and highway barefoot, his once sacred blood leaving smears on the stone. Villagers who once trembled at his name now spit in the road ahead of him. A particularly inventive soldier ties the fringe of Huáscar's mascapeca to a donkey's tail, the imperial banner dragging through dung and dust. Yet in his darkest hour, Huáscar finds his voice. At the crossroads of Antá, he suddenly straightens and shouts a prophecy that silences even his tormentors. You chain me today, brother, but soon strangers will chain us both. The soldiers laugh, but you notice how quickly they hurry him along after that. Some truths cut deeper than swords. As the miserable caravan disappears toward Cajamarca, the people of Cusco whisper the unthinkable. Perhaps no son of Inti was ever divine at all. The realization spreads faster than any army. Atahualpa's victory feast in Cajamarca smells like roasted meats and hubris. You watch from the shadows as the conqueror lounges on a litter carried by Huáscar's former generals, their faces painted half red, half gold in grotesque mockery of their fallen loyalty. The captured Sapa Inca kneels in a bamboo cage at the banquet center, forced to watch as his brother drinks from their father's sacred Caro cup. The psychological torture is meticulously crafted. Atahualpa orders Huáscar's wives to serve him wine, their once fine garments replaced by rough Huáscar fiber. He stages a mock Inti festival using Cusco's stolen golden idols, laughing when Huáscar instinctively reaches through the bars to bless non-existent worshippers. The cruelty peaks when Quito's generals present their king with a new footstool, the still-warm Tumi knife that slit Huáscar's favorite son's throat. Yet in these twisted games, you notice something unsettling. Atahualpa never looks his brother directly in the eyes. He drinks heavily. He snaps at servants over nothing. That famous jaguar smile now looks more like a grimace. The truth whispers through the court. The victor is becoming haunted by his victory. Huáscar, meanwhile, discovers an unexpected weapon, his own brokenness. When ordered to declare himself illegitimate before the court, he does so with such theatrical groveling that it unsettles everyone. when forced to eat scraps like a dog. He licks the golden platter clean with exaggerated relish. Each humiliation he embraces makes the humiliation ring hollow. By the feast's end, an odd reversal occurs. The prisoners begin pitying their captor. You hear a Quito noble mutter what all are thinking. A god who needs this much proof he's a god. His sentence goes unfinished, but the implication lingers like smoke. Atahualpa won the war, but the throne? That victory remains uncertain. The rumors arrive like a winter fog, first as whispers in the porter's quarters, then as urgent reports from northern scouts. You're sharpening an obsidian blade when the first description reaches Cajamarca. Pale men riding beasts like giant llamas, their sticks spitting thunder that kills from a distance. The court laughs. Atahualpa orders the messengers whipped for spreading panic. But the stories persist. You slip into the coastal town of Tums, where fishermen describe floating temples larger than anything the Inca have built. Their hands shake as they mimic the strangers' weapons. Boom! Then your chest is full of blood. A local merchant shows you something impossible. A transparent rock he calls crystal that bends sunlight. The price? 3 gold kumpies. The implications? Priceless. Back in Cajamarca, Atahualpa's generals argue in hushed tones. Some say these viracochas must be gods. Others insist they're just unusually bold barbarians. The debate ends when a detachment of Huáscar's former soldiers, now loyal to Atahualpa, return from a reconnaissance mission. Or rather, what's left of them return. The sole survivor babbles about metal monsters that eat men whole. His right arm ends at the elbow in a cauterized stump. The stench of burned flesh mixes with something sharper, something chemical. That night, for the first time since his victory, Atahualpa sacrifices a black llama to Inti. Not in triumph, but in fear. Meanwhile, in his cage, Huáscar begins laughing. Not the mad cackles of a broken man, but the low, knowing chuckles of someone who's just seen the game board flip. When a guard kicks his bars, the deposed king simply whispers, "Tell my brother his new enemies make excellent allies." The message isn't delivered, but it doesn't need to be. The empire already feels the approaching earthquake. Atahualpa's throne room reeks of sweat and indecision when the Spanish envoys arrive. You stand among the nobles as Pizarro's translator. A ragged Spaniard with Quechua learned in coastal brothels announces they come in peace. The lie hangs thicker than Andean fog. Atahualpa plays the gracious host, serving chicha in golden cups while his generals quietly position troops around the square. But you notice how his fingers keep straying to the emerald necklace that once belonged to Huáscar, not as adornment, but as armor against the stranger's piercing stares. When the Spanish friar presents a Bible, demanding the Inca swear fealty to a foreign god, the tension snaps like overstretched rope. The Bible hits the floor. Atahualpa's smile doesn't waver as he examines the Word of God, now lying in the dust. "Your God should have better aim," he murmurs. The court erupts in nervous laughter, but the Spaniards don't react. They just stare. That's when you realize this was never a negotiation. It was a countdown. The ambush springs with mechanical precision. Hidden cannons roar. Steel-clad cavalry burst from side streets. Atahualpa's elite guards, men who've survived 100 battles, fall like wheat before scythes, their quilted armor useless against lead shot. You see a Spanish sword cleave through 3 men in one swing, their blood arcing in perfect unison. Through the smoke, one image etches itself into memory. Atahualpa standing frozen on his litter, watching his invincible empire dissolve in gunpowder haze. His lips form a single word, not a war cry, not a prayer, but his brother's name. Huáscar, rotting in a nearby cell, hears the gunfire and begins singing an old harvest song. The guards don't silence him. They're too busy running. The ransom negotiations would be comical if they weren't so tragic. You watch as Atahualpa, once the god king of millions, stands on tiptoe to mark a line high on the chamber wall with chalky fingers. "I will fill this room with gold." he promises Pizarro, his voice steady despite the manacles. The Spanish captain's eyes glitter like a hawk spotting wounded prey. For months, the empire bleeds gold. Porters stagger into Cajamarca under backbreaking loads. Sacred sun discs from the Coricancha, life-sized golden cornstalks from royal gardens, even the embossed plates from Huáscar's old prison cell. You witness a general weep as he melts down a 400-year-old ancestor effigy, its face bubbling away in the crucible. The Spanish overseers don't understand the sacrilege they're committing. They just keep demanding more. Meanwhile, in his new cell, Atahualpa plays his last game. He learns chess from his captors, mastering the moves with frightening speed. "The king is weak alone," he murmurs during a match, moving his queen aggressively. Pizarro misses the warning, but you notice Atahualpa's generals exchanging glances. They're still loyal, still waiting for orders that never come. The betrayal comes on a Thursday, despite the ransom being paid, despite the room filled past the chalk line. The Spanish convene a sham trial. Charges include idolatry, polygamy, and the murder of Huáscar, conveniently strangled weeks earlier on Atahualpa's rumored orders. The verdict is decided before the first witness speaks. That night, the last free Sapper Inca learns his fate under a crucifix he still doesn't recognize. His only request? To be garroted instead of burned, so his body remains whole for the afterlife. As the iron collar tightens, you catch his final whisper, not in Quechua, but broken Spanish. Checkmate. The empire dies with him. The garrote's creak still echoes through Cajamarca when the Spanish make their next move. You're hiding in the rafters as Pizarro's men drag Atahualpa's stiffened corpse into the square, propping him upright on his litter like some macabre puppet. The message is clear: obedience or death, even in death. But the empire has stopped listening. With both brothers gone, the Spanish expect easy conquest. Instead, they find a hydra. From Vilcabamba to Quito, surviving generals declare themselves successors, each fracturing the empire further. You witness Manco Inca, a forgotten royal cousin, crowned with a makeshift mascapeco woven from Spanish horsehair. The symbolism isn't subtle. The true horror unfolds in Cusco's ruins. Pizarro's men melt down the Temple of the Sun's remaining gold, but the real desecration happens afterward. Without Inca engineers, the aqueducts fail. Terraces crumble. Starving refugees strip the sacred valley bare. One night, you catch a Spanish priest using Huáscar's skull as an inkwell, his quill scratching out conversion records on parchment made from Atahualpa's stolen battle banners. Yet in the chaos, something unexpected stirs. Quechua mothers teach children old stories in hushed tones. Farmers secretly bury huacas beneath Christian crosses. The empire is dead, but its bones are becoming seeds. As you walk the overgrown Capac, and one last time, a weathered porter whispers the question, haunting every survivor. If the brothers had united against the pale man instead of each other? He trails off. The answer is written in the ashes of every burned village, the hollow eyes of every orphan. Some wars aren't lost on the battlefield. They're lost long before, in poisoned feasts and shattered trusts. Centuries dissolve like mist in the sacred valley as you stand amidst the ruins of Coricancha, now Santo Domingo Church, the Spanish stones swallowing the Inca masonry like some architectural parasite. A tour guide cheerfully explains how the Conquistadors built upon the temple's foundations. You resist the urge to correct him. The modern world has sanitized the War of Brothers into tidy paragraphs in textbooks. The complexities flattened to simple power struggles. But the Andes remember. When morning light hits Machu Picchu just so, you can still see shadowy outlines of the battles, ghostly warriors frozen mid-charge in the granite. Local elders claim if you press your ear to certain stones at dusk, you'll hear Huáscar and Atahualpa still arguing in the earth. Yet the true legacy isn't in the grand ruins. It's in the small survivals. The grandmother teaching her granddaughter to weave traditional patterns in secret. The farmer still leaving coca leaves at mountain springs despite his baptism. The protesters waving rainbow Tontinsiu flags against modern oppression. The empire fell, but the people? They're still here. As the sun dips behind Huayna Picchu, casting the valley in gold and shadow, one question lingers. Was this always the inevitable ending? Or could different choices at key moments, a shared cup of chicha here, an honest conversation there, have changed everything? History says the brothers' war weakened the empire for conquest. But perhaps the deeper truth is this. No civilization falls solely because of outsiders. The cracks must already be there, waiting to be exploited. So tell me, as you sit there with your device glowing in the dark, what divides in your own world seem small now, but might one day become fatal cracks? And more importantly, what are you doing to mend them? The echoes of the Inca brothers' war linger long after the final battle, not just in the stones of Machu Picchu or the pages of history books, but in the quiet lessons about power, pride, and the fragility of even the mightiest civilizations. As we leave the Andes behind, let's carry forward this truth. No empire falls solely because of external forces. The real undoing begins within, through broken trusts, unchecked ambitions, and the fatal belief that some victories are worth any cost. Atahualpa and Huáscar's story is more than a tale of sibling rivalry. It's a mirror reflecting our own world's divisions. In their refusal to unite against a greater threat, they sealed not just their own fates, but the fate of an entire civilization. And yet, in the resilience of their descendants, we find hope. Proof that even the deepest fractures can, with time, heal into scars that tell a story of survival. So as the screen fades to black tonight, consider this. What alliances are you neglecting in your own life? What bridges might you build today to avoid burning them tomorrow? The past doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, and the choice to listen for that rhythm is always ours.